If you needed help at 4 a.m, who would you turn to? What are the health impacts of feeling isolated? And in a world where more of us are living longer or choosing to be on our own, how do we protect ourselves from one of the biggest problems facing both the older and younger generations, loneliness? You see, the dictionary says being lonely is sadness without friends or company, but perhaps being alone isn't as simple as the meaning suggests. From the people who've worn the t-shirt and got the postcard of facing life alone, to those connecting them with a new lease of life, to the GPs and health experts seeing their patients transform firsthand. This is Discover Brightlife, a podcast series challenging the idea of what loneliness really is and what all of us can do to help to avoid it. For more information on this series, visit brightlifecheshire.org.uk. Discover Brightlife, because sometimes the best medicine is a good laugh in friendly company. Caring can come in so many different ways, from the love we express to our family, our close friends, or even a neighbour. But according to the social prescribers, over half of the folk reaching out to Brightlife are a full-time carer in need of some TLC themselves. In this episode, we meet Jackie and Sue, both working for Brightlife Cheshire, just like Catherine and Chris in episode 3. As social prescribers, their task is to find ways of connecting and referring ordinary people to the local services they might need. When the project first began 3 years ago, the prescribers began with a blank canvas. They've spent the last 3 years networking, meeting, attending every service in their area, so that when it comes to recommending the right solution, they can give first-hand knowledge of what to expect. It can mean that they even hold someone's hand when they first walk through the doors, or sometimes it can mean spending weeks building trust and relationships to give people confidence to even let them through their own front door. On this episode, we hear of how the job has impacted Jackie and Sue personally, but also on the subject of carers, a subject which has touched their hearts.
Some of the things that I've been shocked at, is seeing clients living, clients that have actually fallen through the net, and you think, how on earth can they, live like this? I had a gentleman that was living in really bad conditions, and I thought, well, how can that happen? How could he, I've got onto social services and. He's had things addressed, but those are the sort of that you just think, how can people actually, live the way they do without any sort of help or intervention or support?
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that's really kind of hit a nerve with me, really, that kind of shocked me a little bit, really, but how many unsung heroes there are out there. I would say that over 50% of my clients are being supported by a full-time carer. In most cases it's a partner, but in some cases it's a member of a family, a son or daughter, or even a neighbour. And I know organisations like the Cheshire Carers do a fantastic job, but they're a third sector organisation and their resources are very limited. But it shocked me actually how many people there are out there who are totally reliant, and I mean totally reliant, on a full-time carer, and the carer is not getting the support that they need for lots of different reasons. And I find that that when you go into situations like that, and it's, as I say, it seems to be very, very common amongst my client group, that not only obviously are you there to try and support the client who needs some support and needs some intervention, but it's also about what support we can give to that carer as well, because I've been in that situation for personal reasons, supporting my dad and my mum as the carer, and there isn't a lot of support out there. And of course, when something happens to the carer, then the situation becomes a crisis.
There's definitely not enough services, are there, for people with dementia?
There isn't, and I find that quite sad.
Yeah, it is very sad.
And that has been quite a shock for me, really, just how many people, like you say, have slipped through the net, and the services, the health professionals are not aware, and they're literally, I would say, some of them living day by day, really. Waiting, and that there is going to be a crisis waiting. There's a crisis.
I think social services are so overstretched, so they're just happy. Well, I say happy. Happy is probably not the word, but they just they rely on the carer to to care, really. So and if they've got somebody with them, then it's a win-win for them, isn't it? Really, because it's a very, very hard situation for the carer, though, isn't it?
I guess the things that have touched my heart, really, are, as I say, some of these people that I've talked about, some of these carers that are totally committed to supporting their mother
they're isolated themselves, aren't they?
They are, but it really touches you sometimes when you leave people and see how committed. I've got one gentleman who was referred into my service probably about 5 or 6 months ago, and although we're not an emergency service, the community matrons asked me if I could treat this particular gentleman as priority. So I contacted him and went to visit him within a couple of days, and really didn't know what situation I was going to be faced in. He was caring for his wife 24 hours a day, and his wife was terminally ill, and she was in a bed in the lounge. And he'd had some experience of his wife being in a care home, but the experience hadn't been a good one. So he'd made the decision to look after his wife throughout her illness for the rest of her days at home. But he'd got to breaking point, and he just couldn't cope. So the health professionals came in to try and see what support that they could offer. But they also asked me to try and help to support him and get the gentleman out for some periods of time, because they felt that it wasn't healthy for him to be with his wife who was terminally ill, or 24 hours a day. So I did manage to get the gentleman, a lovely gentleman. They managed to get somebody to sit with him, sit with his wife for a few hours twice a week, so that I could kind of engage him with the community. I've been in touch with the gentleman a few times, and I've talked to the health professionals. His wife is, very much, she's only got a matter of weeks now, but he won't leave the house. He's got to the stage now where he wants to be with his wife for every single minute of the day, and it's just obviously to see that commitment and that dedication and that love between the two of them, that he wants to be there and with his wife every moment, really, until the end.
I've had so many people touch you, don't they?
They do. He's just touched me with his, and it's such a lovely. Obviously, it's going to be very, very hard for him when his wife does finally go, but he wants to be literally sitting with her for every last moment that she's got, right until the end. So it's. I can honestly say, I think that every day somebody touches me. I think the people as well that I find quite hard is the younger people that are really, really struggling with isolation. I have a gentleman who's in his 50s. He's had a couple of strokes. His daughter lives with him. We have to go in twos, in pairs, when we see him because of the threats around his daughter. He's living basically in the lounge with between a hospital bed and a chair. And we have got some outcomes, but it's been extremely difficult. and limiting because of his strokes, and it's very difficult, I think, when you're coming across people who are very young like that.
Yeah.
And
I've got a guy that's 53, and he was a Marine. You know, he fought in Afghanistan, and then he had a bleed on the, you know, he had a hemorrhage, a brain hemorrhage, and so his personality is completely changed now. You know, he's a lovely man, and he finds life quite difficult now, and you just think, you know, he's fought for us, he's fought for our country, and you know, that's his fate, really.
I think it's important that you've got that you have empathy with older people. You have a lot of patience, and you had really good listening skills, because it's important, particularly when you first meet a client, to just sit there and just listen. You know, whether it for an hour, whether it's 2 hours or even 3 hours, because the more you listen and the more you empathise, the more information you're going to get out of the client, the more you understand them and their background, and that just makes it so much easier to be able to get to know them, be able to help them. And I say it surprises me, but I guess it doesn't surprise me really, that how honest people are, and how much they're always very keen to tell their story. But it's just really important that when you first meet a client, that you build up that trust and confidence with them, and start building that relationship. Obviously there is a fine line between professionalism and being their friend, but it's really important that you because you're going on a journey with people, and they, you know, the more they kind of open up to you and tell you about their story and their situation, the much more able you are to help them and support them with reconnecting with the community.
Yeah, I agree with everything that you've said, and I think you really, really have to like people, don't you, to do this job? I think that's really important.
Yeah.
And one of my favourite parts of the role is actually when we do the assessment and we ask people, you know, tell us about yourself, and the stories that they tell you, and they're really like to connect, don't they, and tell you their stories. I think people do like to talk.
They do.
Especially if they've been very lonely. I find that people do like to offload as well. It can get quite emotional at times when they actually offload, but telling their stories are amazing. Some of the things that people have done, it actually sort of rekindles their, you know, when they start talking about their lives, it really kind of, they remember things that they've forgotten about, which I think is great.
They do, and the skills and the talent that they, you know, it's such amazing stories, but also the skills that they've had, that we, you know, try and help them find again, and engage with, you know, those skills again, even if they haven't done something for such a long time. You can tell when you hit on a particular topic or something that's of interest to them. You suddenly see somebody who you perhaps met an hour ago. You suddenly see people come alive, and you see that spark in their eye, and it's lovely to see that. So often, you know, even if you might have had quite a difficult day, once you've been to see someone, I find that once I've left somebody, you go home with such a sense of pride with your work, and knowing that at least on that day you've made a bit of a difference to someone, and hopefully that's the start of the journey. It is such a lovely feeling, I think, at the end of the day, because although we come across some quite emotional situations, you do feel as if you've made a massive difference at the end of the day to people. And that's what we're here to do.
But don't you think sometimes it takes a few visits though? Because I've been to see people and they've said, oh, you know, I've never really done any, you know, I've not had any hobbies, but after a few visits things come out, don't they? And they say, oh, I used to do that, you know, I used to make cards, or, you know, I used to enjoy going dancing, and I used to do exercise, but they don't always tell you that on the first visit, do they? So it is about building up that trust and you know, and having you know, giving people time, and I think sometimes they do forget because they're just living in that moment. They forget some of the things that they've done in the past.
They do, and I think you know, with some of the clients, they engage fairly quickly, but then with other people it takes many months to actually, you know, get those outcomes. I mean, I've had a number of clients where we've tried lots of different things, lots of different activities and support groups, and it's been, you know, sometimes up to 6 months before they've actually found something that they feel really comfortable with, and you've started to see that real difference in them and a smile on the face.
Don't you think that's a lack of confidence and to begin with as well, and maybe lack of motivation as well? So it's really down to us to try and help with that, and, you know, try and install some confidence and motivation.
I think so. And I think we don't always realise and appreciate what a difference we're making. But I went to see a client last week, and I did a review visit, and it's someone that I've been on quite a journey with, you know, for 6 months.
Yeah.
And she wrote some lovely feedback actually on the feedback form, and said that the main thing that I'd done was actually giving her motivation and a confidence back, which she'd lost because she'd been, you know, on her own for quite some time.
Oh, that's lovely. Now that you were talking about, you know, it making your day and you going home with a sense of pride, and when people do actually come back to you and say, well, you know, thank you for what you've done, and thank you for, you know, for helping me to get from, you know, not doing anything to actually getting out in the community and engaging with people. And it's so lovely to see that, isn't it? So lovely to see people actually when they're out actually speaking to others and having some interaction and laughing, really. I've had a gentleman that he's amazing. He was an RAF pilot in the Second World War, and he worked in the live buildings, and he's 94, but he still drives, but he had a fall not long recently, so he's like he doesn't want to go out now. He doesn't want to. I took him to Chester FC because he's really into sport, and he used to support Chester FC. And his hearing aid fell out, so he couldn't hear anything anyway. But so it wasn't the best. But he because he's had this fall as well, he doesn't want to. It's kind of set him back. He doesn't want to go out now, and so, you know, we go and see him on a monthly basis, and hopefully we'll find him a buddy.
Everybody that you meet, I find, is so interesting. I can honestly say that every client that I've come across, every older person, whether it's formally through a referral or whether it's been more informally, I can honestly say that every client has been really interesting, and I felt quite inspired by all the people that I've met, you know, by listening to their stories, sitting there and listening and finding out about them and gaining their, you know, trust and their confidence. And I guess, you know, we're dealing with people from, I think my youngest client is 50, my oldest client, I've got quite a number of clients now who are in the 90s, but everybody is so different, so unique, but so interesting and fascinating, and got so many stories, got so many skills, and it's great to be able to try and help them bring out those skills again and reignite that kind of passion that they've had before, and, you know, just get them engaging with the community, meeting people and seeing the difference that it makes, a smile, seeing people laughing. People just don't know. People are just not aware of what's out there. With our role as well, is we don't just go in and leave a couple of leaflets with people. We are there to support people through that journey. And I know that when we talk to people and we say, look, you know, we can support you for a number of months if that's what it's going to take. That's a massive help. I think with, and I'm sure you'll agree, Sue, that if we were to just go in, spend an hour and just leave a couple of leaflets, we know that those people wouldn't engage, because by the nature of people who are isolated, there are people that with lots of complex health needs and health situations. There's usually a lot going on there, And it takes much more than just going in and sitting with someone and leaving them a leaflet.
Yeah.
So we will revisit them on a regular basis. We will connect them with the right organisations, whether it is the Alzheimer's or the Parkinson's, find out what's going on there. And it is very much seeing persons, taking that person-centred approach. It is absolutely crucial in our role to take that approach.
I hope people,
and to listen to those clients about what they want to do.
I hope they see that in us. I hope they see that it is about them as an individual, as a person, rather than just going through a process. Because I would hate to think that, and hopefully that's what they see, because we do. We've had quite a lot of success, haven't we, with people actually opening up to us, telling us about their past lives, and it can be quite emotional for them. It's can be quite emotive, but if they're happy to do that, I think that means that we have connected with them, and then going forward, it's about being more confident. So we've so tell me about some of your clients, because I've got some fantastic stories.
Well, I've come across a couple fairly recently before Christmas, and who had to move up this area to move up to Winsford to be nearer to family, and it was quite a difficult initial meeting, because one of the clients had dementia and she was nearly 90. Her husband was 94, and has got a lot of health problems. Wasn't able to see properly, very, very poor hearing. But he specifically wanted to join a Probus group, and his wife specifically wanted to join the Methodists. And the son was involved in the visit. And, I thought it might be quite difficult to actually get some outcomes. And I think they were kind of a little bit wary of me initially, thinking, well, who is this person? Is she going to be able to help us? But actually, through my connections, I found that there was a Probus club locally, and not only was there a Probus club, but they were able to come and pick up the clients and take them there, which was obviously one of the biggest obstacles. And I was also able, through my connections with all the churches in Winsford, able to get the lady connected with the Methodist Church. And I think they were quite surprised, really, by the knowledge that I've actually gained, and the connections in Winsford. And the social worker that referred them into me said she had no problems, because she knew from my experience and from working closely with the social work team that I was the right person to try and build a relationship and find some outcomes. And we've been back and I've seen them on a regular basis, and although the lady has dementia, she is beginning to enjoy life again, and her husband as well. And I think because they both needed separate interests as well, that was the other thing that was this kind of really important for them both. That obviously they lived together, and they wanted and needed separate interests. And now, like the son said, it's given them something to talk about, and it's given them a purpose. Once or twice a week to get up and that motivation to go out and find new interest and make new friends.
That's fantastic, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that must make you feel good as well.
Yeah, it does. It does. Yeah. Particularly when you go into a situation where it's going to be quite difficult. They've both moved to the area. Particularly the husband was very specific about what he wanted. I knew that transport was going to be an issue. And as you know, Sue, that is one of the big challenges for us. Because again, if you think about the nature of people who are socially isolated, very, very few of them have either got transport or are able to access transport. So, that's a big part of when we do our kind of networking with organisations to try and find out how are we going to actually get our clients to the group. So I work very, very closely with the community transport in the Winsford area, and are often down at their offices and chatting and building that relationship, which for me is key, and working with churches and other organisations that I know that are going to be able to help people overcome those obstacles, because that again, that's such a key part of our role, really, because again, by the nature of the people we deal with, there are lots of obstacles, and I see our role as trying to remove those obstacles to enable people to enjoy those activities and help them to reconnect with the community.
Well, I'd like to talk about mental health, because a lot of my clients have come through the mental health team at Upton Dean in Chester, because I went and did a talk there. One of the social work team asked me along to do a talk, which was quite daunting, but lots of psychiatrists in the room.
Sounds like it paid off.
Yeah, and we've had quite a lot of referrals from them, but I've been out to see people in their homes, and I've also had they've been referred through from the mental health team, but also self-referrals. And the thing that I found is a lot of the people that I've seen are, they've accessed mental health services, like the social groups, but they don't want to do that. They want to, one of my ladies, one of my clients, she said, so I just want to go to a normal, that's what she was quoting, a normal social group. So she's come along to my drop-in, which is great. But, I think there's mental health in older age is rife. A lot of people that, if you've lost your partner, or if you've become unwell, then it goes hand in hand with the physical and emotional side of your life, doesn't it, really? So to see people, I've seen people that have come along that I know have got enduring mental health issues, and they're interacting with other people, and nobody knows that they have a mental health issue. And it's lovely to see them interact with others. And I know that there's, one gentleman in particular who lives alone. He was a carer for his parents, and he's actually, his house is he hoards a bit, and I'd never thought he would actually come along to a drop-in. Very intelligent man. And he's just amazing. He's come along, and he's come along to both of my drop-ins actually, and he's enjoyed interacting with others. And I just sat back the other day and watched him, laughing with somebody, and it's just amazing. It's a
lovely
to see.
feeling, isn't it?
That makes my job. That actually makes my job.
We've got a client, a couple, and she's got dementia, and a lot of people I find that I come across with dementia don't always want that formal support, like you say. They want to access more informal groups. And I've worked with this particular client, Andrew, and his wife, who's got quite advanced dementia, and we've managed to connect them with a lot of groups. And every time I see, particularly Andrew now, he said, for the first time in many, many years, we're both enjoying life.
That's
Margaret's
great.
settled into quite a few groups. People know her, give her the appropriate support. And he said, I never thought we would be able to enjoy life again. And that's made such a difference.
Yeah.
One of the things that I found is that when social workers, and I'm getting a lot more referrals from social workers and GPs and health professionals, when they're visiting people sometimes who are not quite ready for the formal support, they will quite often refer into me, because they know that I will support people in an informal way and introduce them to informal networks and support groups. And by building their confidence and the relationship with me, I can quite often then kind of persuade people after a period of time to introduce social services and more formal support to people, and that seems to be working quite well,
because it's evolved so much. You started before me, didn't you? You started 6 months before me, and Winsford was you rolled out the Winsford area 6 months before me, and then Chester. So we both started with no referrals, didn't we? We started from a blank canvas.
We did,
and
yeah.
It's amazing how it's grown and taken off, and we've got dare I say, a good reputation now, Jackie. Although I think some people still call us Bright House.
Yes,
they still phone up and ask us if I think they phoned Jane in the office and said, can I buy a fridge? Because I think they get slightly mixed up with Bright House. Yes.
Yeah. But it's lovely because I walk around Winsford now, because, you know, mainly based at Wyvern House, Cheshire West building, and I walk through the town centre to the library or the Dingle Centre, which is the resource centre, as you know, for older people.
Yeah.
And I bump into so many people now, you know, who recognise me, whether it's colleagues that I work with, whether it's clients or family members, people that I know from the library, and everybody knows me, and everybody knows about Brightlife now, and like you say, it's getting, you know, we've worked tremendously hard to build our reputation in those areas that we work with, and it's really paying off now, and people trust us. We're a trusted organisation and individual now, and people don't hesitate. I find now that people don't hesitate to refer into our service because they can see the difference. The health professionals are saying, you know, this particular individual, Jackie, since I've referred them into you, you've got them involved in men and sheds. They don't come back into the surgery anymore. They're off their antidepressants, those kind of things. So the health professionals are seeing the evidence, seeing the difference to their patients.
What's hard for you though? When, you know, when you've had a bad day, what do you you know, I know that we talk, don't we, sometimes, and if we've both had a bad day or we've had a very sad situation, do you find it, you know, hard? Do you find it easy to offload?
It is. I do find it quite hard sometimes, in the sense that, you know, we do come across people with some very, very sad situations,
and when we lose a client as well, I mean, you know, when we've built up a relationship, it's you can't help but feel sad, can you?
It is hard, but you have to try and just have to remember all the positives and all the good things that you're doing, and I do find that working with my clients at the Citizens Advice Bureau, spending a lot of time with them, and equally they deal with a lot of vulnerable clients, we're able to share, you know, an offload, and the same with the social workers, and of course, you know, yourselves as well. Sometimes I think you just need to offload a little bit to someone, and once you've offloaded and you've been able to share something with one of your colleagues, it's fine then. But you do have to. I do find that the job very much keeps your feet firmly on the ground, though. It makes you appreciate your own health and the health of your family and everybody. You know, it certainly, as I say, makes you appreciate what you have got and the things, your values, and the things that are really important in life, because without your health, you know, it's very, very difficult.
And of course we can't really offload to people outside, you know, our team, can we, because of confidentiality issues, really. So you know, and that makes it hard for us sometimes, don't you think? Because, you know, sometimes you'd like to go home and discuss cases, but you can't. And you know, and although we can, you know, we don't mention names, or, you know, we just, but we, you know, it's a way of us also sharing good practice, isn't it? And you know, asking how you would, you know, cope in that situation, or how you would have, you know, worked a problem out. It helps, doesn't it, to, you know, to discuss. I mean,
we're human.
Really.
We're human. We're all human at the end of the day, and we all need to offload sometimes. But just trying to think of the positive things, that the positive work that we're doing, you know, does make a difference.
Next time, Community Compass directors Simone Cobbold and Yvonne Boyle talk about their new food share club in Winsford and Malpas, and how they go about finding the lonely people who need help in the first place.
I'm thinking of one couple who we went to see not so long ago, who had a very, very, very active lifestyle, off travelling. The lady wasn't well, and now she's found herself totally dependent on her husband for all her care needs, and that's happened literally, you know, that day. It's changed.
It was overnight, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's changed their life, and both of their roles. She'd been carer for her husband, and that's how quickly that has changed, and it can happen to any of us. And I do, yeah, sometimes, I mean, I look at my husband and think, blimey, would he look after me? And I don't know, and I don't know, it does make you think about yourself, and things can be taken from you so quickly that sometimes I think when you're going along in your everyday life, you don't always, you hope that wouldn't happen to you, but you never know. And it does. You look at people, you think, wow.
That's episode 6 of Discover Brightlife. Let's continue with Sue and Jackie, who talk about how finding services, just like Community Compass, are more of the liking to those over 50 than the typical coffee morning.
It's funny, when we talk about loneliness, because, I was speaking to a lady that she does come to my drop-in, and she goes to so many different things. She's very, she's very proactive, but we found her a volunteer. Through Age UK, we found her a volunteer in sharing time, but she said that she didn't really click with the volunteer. And she was saying that, even though she does all these things, there's still an empty hole. She still feels lonely. So loneliness really is something that maybe, if you lose a partner, you probably will never fill that hole. But she's very determined to try, because she's been to many, lots of activities. But, people tend to think because you are out there and you're doing things that you still don't feel lonely. But I think when you go home and you're faced with just yourself, it's still there. So I think we still have to be mindful of that, really.
Yeah.
I think it's loneliness is they say you can still be lonely in a crowd.
Of course.
And I do actually, that is true, isn't it?
I mean, people
really?
Don't choose to be lonely, don't choose to be in that situation.
And I also think loneliness is about not being able to express yourself properly, because I think if you can't be yourself, then you go home and you're another person, and you can't really, that is quite isolating, isn't it? And although I think isolation and loneliness, they do go together, but they can also be totally separate. What do you think?
I mean, you can be isolated, perhaps because lack of transport, living in the country and that kind of thing. But there's a lot more people who are lonely, who perhaps don't admit to being lonely.
No,
but it's and it's something that a lot of us have probably experienced, even younger people at some point.
Absolutely.
I remember being off sick after a hip operation, and even though I've got a family, feeling a little bit lonely at times, because I just felt kind of on my own. But obviously I'm younger and I'm motivated and I've got people around me. But it's something that I think it, it affects so many people.
So what at your drop-in, you've been doing lots of quizzes, haven't you? And
we do. We're doing a variety of things. We do some fun. We do some bowling, and we've got Mersey Forest helping us to do a walk
your
for people.
Walking group,
and that's something particularly that the health professionals are interested in as well.
Yeah.
Because the health professionals are very keen that obviously older people stay active as well.
Yeah.
And that's something that we're keen to promote, particularly through our drop-in. With it being at a youth centre and community centre, there's some great facilities there, and even just having a bit of fun, doing a bit of juggling, or hula hooping, and games of bowls and things like that. Just getting people out of the chair wherever possible, or the seated exercises that Community Compass do on a Monday at their Monday club. I mean, some weeks I nip down there on a Monday, and some weeks there may be up to 30 people there, and you go in while they're doing their exercises. That it's great for them, their physical, mental well-being. They're laughing, they're having fun, and it's just great to walk into places like that and see your clients. Or when I go down to the Salvation Army daycare on a Friday, and I've got so many of my clients there, and to just see people laughing and smiling and holding hands. I've got a couple of clients, Betty and Evelyn, who have become great friends, and just see that really makes you feel good in yourself.
Well, I started off with 2 people coming to each of my drop-ins, and I thought, are they going to grow? But they have done, which is great. And I asked the people when they came, what would they like? So we had a lot of suggestions given. So we've actually we've actually gone through the suggestions and made them into actual activities. So we've got we had somebody wanted a beetle drive, so we've done a beetle drive. We've had speakers come in. Tomorrow I've got one of the rangers coming from Cheshire Western Chester Council, and he's doing making bird feeders for the back garden, because obviously he's interested in wildlife. So we've had a seated exercise demonstration, because I try to get people in from the community that run other activities, so that people get a taste of what's out there, so that they can come back and so that they can use their activities, which is really good. So we've had lots of different things going on, and for me it's making people welcome as well, and I try if we have a quiz, I try and move people around a bit so that they get to talk to others, so they're not I don't like clicks is a thing that puts people off coming, doesn't it? So we try to do that, try and make people welcome, and that's helps.
It is. It's finding different things for people to try. I had a referral recently from the CVA in Chester, a younger client who had to give up work through for health reasons, and I spent some time with this particular individual, and he insisted he wanted something to do with the outdoor and the forestry and that kind of thing, and came up with various ideas, but weren't what he was interested in. But I've managed to connect him with Mersey Forest, and now actually he's doing hedge laying. Which I thought was really interesting, and that's something that I wouldn't have thought to come up with. But by connecting this client with Mersey Forest, because they're doing some incredible stuff, lots of different interesting things that I wouldn't have thought of. And actually this client is doing a hedge laying course now.
Wow.
And it's great to see people doing some really unusual things.
Well, I had a lady that came to my drop-in. Well, I met her through she was referred, and she came to my drop-in, but she wanted to do a wing walk, and she asked me if I'd like to stand on the other wing, but I declined. But unfortunately she's moved away now, so I don't know whether we tried to sort of look into it, but she became quite poorly and she's moved away. But that's I thought, how incredible,
definitely.
So that was really good. And one of the ladies that comes to my drop-in said that she's going to set up a drinking group. I don't quite know what that entails, but she told me last week that's what she wants to do, and it's only gin and whiskey allowed, apparently.
Yeah, it was funny thinking back to when I first started, and myself and my colleague Louise, who it was at the time, working in Malpas, we were quite kind of nervous about the job. We really wasn't sure. Although when I saw the job description, I knew immediately it was for me. I thought, this is for me. I know I can make a massive difference. This is what I want to be doing. When we started, it was like, oh gosh, where do we, I think it was just a little bit overwhelming. Where do we start? What are our priorities? But we both started at the same time. So Louise supported me in Winsford a little bit. I supported Louise in Malpas. And really, when I look back now, it was just a matter of getting to know the areas, getting to know the people in the community, all the relevant organisations. And one of the questions that, when I told people I was going to do this job, one of the questions that I got asked by friends, family, so many times, and people still ask me this question, even though I've been doing the role for a while: how do you reach isolated older people? How do you reach isolated older people? And for me, it was kind of common sense, really. I said, well, you just connect with all the different organisations in your area that will come across. I mean, yes, of course, there's all the health professionals and the community nurses and the GPs and the social workers. But then there's all the organisations like the churches, like the libraries, all the Citizens Advice Bureau, the Salvation Army. So for me, it felt like common sense, but I still get asked that question time and time again. How do you reach isolated older people?
Well, I think the answer is that we're never ever going to reach all isolated people, are we? But
no, but I think we do a really good job. I feel confident that the people that I come across and the people that are referred in to me are the most isolated people. And of course, with that means that you are going to be dealing with people with lots of complex issues. And as you know, Sue, we do work with people for up to 6 months if that's what it takes to work through those issues and overcome the hurdles and the barriers to help people connect. We will do that.
I think linking with like the emergency services and, you know, people that the district nurses and people that see, you know, actually go into homes and see people, they're the best people to find the most isolated people. So, you know, to encourage them more to refer into us is really a quest, isn't it, for us? And you know, I know we do have those referrals, but it would be lovely if we could get more people on board, really.
And the Red Cross, I mean, you know, we both work closely with the Red Cross, and of course work with them once they've supported people for that 6-week period after they've been discharged. Find a lot of clients, you know, come through the Red Cross service and the intermediate care services which are provided for people following that discharge from hospital.
Yeah, that's true.
There's a lot of people that come through, you know, as well, the discharge team.
You were talking about, you know, your fears when you first started, how you sort of felt about the job. I was quite overwhelmed when I first started because I don't live in Chester, and Chester's such a big area, and a lot of the, you know, the areas are like little villages themselves. They're little communities, aren't they, themselves?
Yeah,
so I didn't know really where to start, but having that, I remember the very first, do you remember your first referral? I just remember that first referral coming through from a social worker from the Gateway team in Chester, and going out to see this lady and thinking, what am I going to say? What am I going to do with this lady? But you know, luckily we found a volunteer buddy for her eventually, and she's sort of gone off into the sunset, and we've had a really good outcome. But you don't forget your first, do you? You don't. No, well, I don't forget any of the people that I've seen. But you know, it was, and after that, you know, slowly we had people coming through, and it was about networking as well, wasn't it? And going out and talking to people and saying, you know, this is what we can offer. And actually in Chester, there wasn't really, without having any sort of anything that we could refer anybody into, and I had to find, you know, what was going on in all the little communities out there. It took a while, but you know, it's just amazing how it's all come on. And
it's a great sense of achievement, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, and every area is very different and brings its own advantages and disadvantages and challenges. But you know, I think because we were the right people for the job, and we've got that commitment, but we have, and that passion and interest, and you know that you can make a difference, and the trust and confidence that we've built within our communities, I think, is made a massive difference.
Well, I think it's just, you know, it boils down for me to actually really loving. You've got to be a people person, haven't you?
Absolutely.
You've got to really like people and be interested. I mean, I'm really interested. I'm quite nosy, really. I like to know the, you know, discover what people, the essence of somebody. It's that to me.
Yeah. You've got to like a challenge as well. It's funny as well, because when you talk to people, friends and family about the job, lots of people tend to say to you, I don't know whether it's the same with you two, but lots of people say to me, oh, I could do that job, not a problem. I could do that job. Oh, yeah, not a problem. I don't think people...
I get the opposite, actually. Well, I couldn't do that job. I don't know.
Well, I get a lot of people who say, oh, it sounds a wonderful job and a great job. I'm sure I could do it. I don't think people quite appreciate how many elements and how many skills. I remember talking to Chris at one of my one-to-ones a few months ago, and she was saying, you know, you do have to have so many different skills, because, you know, also we're dealing with family members, you know, we're dealing with clients, we're dealing with health professionals, you're dealing with people from churches, different organisations. So you have to be able to not only communicate well with clients, but with so many other different people.
Yeah, there's quite
And
a
you
lot
have
of strands, isn't there, to this role?
Lot. There is a lot of different skills that you need.
Yeah.
You know, your motivational skills, trying to motivate people and give people lots of empathy and lots of confidence building. So there's a lot of skills, I think, involved. I think other than just the obvious skills that other people see, really, to make a difference.
Yeah, I think what needs to change, really, the culture in our society. I think we need to get back to really looking at our neighbours and seeing, you know, I think we live in such a transient society these days. People move on. I mean, I remember growing up and I knew all my neighbours, you know, and you were always very respectful. But I think we don't necessarily, we live our lives very blinkered, don't we? And I think we don't actually, you know, look at helping people that are in our
I was talking to one of the social workers only last week, actually, and it's great working with social workers because I can talk to them about my clients, they can talk to them about their clients, and we share ideas and things, and a couple of them, I was talking about some of the outcomes from some of the clients that they'd referred in, and two of them were saying, do you know what, we do know there is lonely people and older people nearby to us, and they said, since you've come and started working for us and kind of inspired us, really, to think more about older people that live in our community. One of them has started cooking a meal for one of their neighbours. And another social worker said, I'm going to start supporting one of my neighbours, because he said the work that you've done has actually started to inspire us, you know, and just start thinking about you know, people who are in our community, because we all lead such busy lives. It's so easy to just kind of forget about people who, you know, like you say, who are your neighbours, and you know, so I think what we are doing, we probably don't realise it, but we are starting to inspire, you know, other people that we work with through kind of our passion, enthusiasm, and through our outcomes.
You've been listening to Discover Brightlife, a podcast challenging the idea of loneliness and exploring new ways of tackling social isolation for those over 50. The podcast is presented and produced by Claire Freeman and a Small Furry Bear Productions. For more information, visit brightlifecheshire.org.uk. Discover Brightlife, because sometimes the best medicine is a good laugh in friendly company.